Wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plains of the internet. We're a little bit early today. My goodness, it's Friday. Everybody's week is coming to a close. We're all just kind of, hanging out on a Friday. We're like, we probably should get to work. I mean, it's like going to be, what is it, 5 o'clock yet? Oh, the Supreme Court is here. And I wonder what they have for us. What's in store? Oh, look. Yes, a very important decision came out. Roe versus Wade is now dead. Dun, dun, dun. And my goodness, man, we have a lot to unpack here this morning. And hello, good morning or good afternoon. It's probably afternoon, just barely for some of you there on the East Coast, or maybe it's a whole nother day for some of you in other parts of the world. But hello and welcome, my friends. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney at the R&R Law Group. We're located in Scottsdale, Arizona. And boy, oh boy, today we've got a change of pace. I mean, my goodness, we've been talking about the January 6th Select Committee fake hearings for the last several years. It feels like lifetimes now. And now we get to talk about something different, which I'm very excited about. And it's a big deal because this is reversing course on some really bad precedent, some really bad case law that was put in place by some judges who sort of thought that they may be congresspeople, like they may be legislators or something. And this is a good decision, in my opinion, really primarily from a legal perspective. And that's the framework that I want to go through here today. I know these can really sort of spiral out into these big social issues and social debates like when does life start and all that, right? And this is not what this channel is about. Those are great questions, and I like to unpack those, but there's just too much to get into. Let me show you what I'm talking about. As usual, we go over to our mind map, okay? And today, take a look at these three prongs that we're going to dive into this morning. And there is still a lot of reaction that is coming out. I mean, obviously, this is all sort of breaking news, and Biden is actually set to speak here today in about 27 minutes, if I am remembering that right. And we'll cut over to the White House. Let's actually just pull that up right now. President Biden is going to speak, and I don't want to miss it. Let's see where they're at. Okay, so 24 minutes from now, we'll do the old picture in picture. If we, oh no, it's not started yet. So, okay, so we'll be back in about 24 minutes. And chat, if you start screaming at me if I miss that, or if they jump in early or something. But we will cut over to that because the White House at 12:30 p.m. Eastern is going to have something to say about it. And right now, Joe Biden is, they're probably preparing one of those cards. Did you guys see those cards, that card that Joe Biden reads from? You sit in a chair. You look at people. It's a very strange card, but it was sort of the mechanics of how he goes and sits and operates and go to the Roosevelt room and sit down and look at the camera and then say something and then get up from the camera and then leave the room and say, thank you for being here. It's a very strange thing, but he's going to come out and say something here in about 24 minutes. And so we'll cut over to that. We are, of course, going to take a look at what was going on literally outside the Supreme Court. So this should be something like, Supreme Court, like the campus or something. And we'll go through this because a lot of activity today. We have sort of a pre-decision little walk and talk, little framework that we'll go through here, or we'll see what they're doing over there. The Washington Post had somebody out, before all of this got started this morning. And we'll just sort of, do a vibe check and see how things were going over there. And then we'll actually see the moment of the decision itself. We'll take a look at the crowd as the decision sort of was spreading through the phones and everybody said, whoa, what's going on right now? We'll take a look at that. We'll take a look at some of the post-decision, which is sort of reaction after the fact, because there was a lot of people saying prayers. There were a lot of women who were cheering and hugging each other, which is weird to me because I was thinking that, this is sort of the moment of their greatest oppression. This is the moment that really, I think it might even be the end of women in America. I don't know. We'll have to find out what Joe Biden says. It probably will be something like that. But they were cheering and they were hugging each other and they were saying prayers and thanking the Lord. And I was thinking, this is really strange. Yeah, I thought this was like a catastrophe. Anyways, so we'll go through that. And then we saw actually Marjorie Taylor Greene was out there and she was talking to somebody from RSBN. I think that's the Right Side Broadcasting Network. And they were little sort of prognosticating about some potential violence that might come out. And, there was that clip from Chuck Schumer, and Schumer was telling us that there is going to be basically hell to pay if this decision comes out. And of course it did. So we're going to see what Chuck Schumer has to say about it. There are, of course, a lot of angry people there who are dropping the flip off, F off bird. There is another protesting group there saying this is not, this must not stand. And so, it sort of feels a little insurrectionary. We're going to speculate or prognosticate. We'll see what's going on there in DC and around Catholic churches and around, sort of organizations that are built to oppose the abortion lobby. They may be sort of facing some pressure today and for the rest of the weekend and maybe for the rest of the year. Who knows? We'll see. There is some rumor that there may be some pressure on Joe Biden to declare a national emergency. Okay, I didn't put that in the title just to be clickbaity, although it is a good clickbaity title. And there actually is pressure on him now. It's starting to build. We have some congresswomen who are saying, it's time, Joe. We need another national emergency, and this justifies it. And we've got some good memes here. Judge Clarence Thomas, I saw a pretty good meme of him. And then we have a funeral meme. And, we might as well, while we're here, we might as well just start off with this. Maybe this will just be sort of a celebratory, all right. So we got to make sure the volume on this one's okay. I think you know where this is going, my friends. It's already alive and well. Brace yourselves. It's the end of Roe versus Wade. Celebration on this Friday. Lovely Friday afternoon, the end of Roe. Party, party, oh yeah. All right, so that was one good meme. And I think they saw Judge Clarence Thomas out over there outside of the White House. And they also got a caption of a lot of the crying going on out there here today. Here's Judge Clarence Thomas, who's celebrating. I think they captured these from TikToks somewhere. Let's see here. Yeah, there's Judge Clarence Thomas. Yeah, there he is. So, the internet is incredibly fast, as you can tell, right? The opinion is like an hour and a half old, and there's already memes flying around. So they don't even play around there. Justice Clarence Thomas is very, very happy about it. And of course, some of those memes are being shared over on our members community over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com, and they're chatting away. Shout out to Bonnie Speck, JC, the Music Man. Vienticus Prime is here. He says, I'm so tired. Why are you doing an early show? What's up? Good to see you here, V. Justice Obsessed is in the house. Black Cat Meow. Matt's mom. Shout out to Matt's mom. John Halgren is here. John Halgren, good to see you, John. Sugar Britches is in the house. Over on Rumble, we also have, Vienticus is there. Nobody's over on Rumble right now. Is it working? I don't know if it's working or not. Protect Women's Spaces. Okay, here's Protect Women's Spaces. We have Adrian F., Drew Wolf, Thunder on YouTube, Scott Nelson, Moxie McMahon. We have Sandy M's in the house, Adela Gonzalez. We have Don Blanchard, JF Kennedy, and Mindless Turtle. Good to see everybody, and welcome again to the show. And if you want to be a part of one of our communities, you can do that either by joining the YouTube membership. You can join over on Locals. You see the addresses here. And of course, don't forget our law firm. If you know anybody who's charged with a crime in the state of Arizona, we'd love the opportunity to help. This is the R&R Law Group. We offer free case evaluations. And shout out to Vienticus Prime and our other mods who are there to help keep the show on track. All right. And so, as we saw, we have a lot to get to, and let's take ourselves back to the early morning. Let's take ourselves back to this Friday morning. You're an abortion activist on either side. You're somebody who wants to see Roe codified and ensconced in law, or you're somebody who wants to see Roe aborted, pun intended. And here, this is what was going on this morning. Take a look. So outside of the Supreme Court, we get some activity, and the crowd's pretty small at this moment. But this lady is here, and I think she's a pro-abortion activist. We've got several sort of clips of her. And as we fast forward, you see the crowd starts to pick up a little bit. Now, we're just going to set some brief context, and then we're going to get to the actual moment of the decision, right? The crowd's there, People are screaming at each other, going back and forth. You're a this, no, you're a that, and around and around we go. It's just good American political fun. I mean, that's what we do. We get out there, and this is free speech in action, baby. Love it. Okay, so they're here, and there is a long back and forth, and then the news spreads through the cell phones, and they go, oh, what's going on here? And you hear the crowds, and you hear some cheers, and you hear some boos, and then everybody starts to realize what had happened. So before we get there, though, let's see what else is going on. So we can sort of identify some of the groups here a little bit. They're getting together. America is not a Christian nation, someone says. Dismember Roe, someone else says. Okay, here's sort of... now I got to handle the volume. All right, we'll turn that down here. Right, because that's a speaker literally in the camera. All right, and so you see the two groups, and I think we've got a pride flag going on, and human beings are not disposable, and, it's getting a little bit, rowdy. You can hear the speakers in the camera, very low on the desktop audio. But as we fast forward, the police start to sort of create this barricade, and they're separating a couple of the groups. And right in front of that, right there, right in sort of the front facade of the Supreme Court, you see sort of laterally different buckets of groups. So you'll see the pro-lifers on one side and the pro-choicers sort of down to the left on the other side. And it's just this, this sort of back and forth most of the morning. And, I was sort of following along at home. People were speculating on Twitter that there was going to be the opinion coming out. Now, and the reason for that, we didn't know if the opinion was going to be coming out today because they still have, several more opinions. And many people were thinking that it would be sort of the final opinion, the last moment, the very end. And they'd sort of, drop the opinion out of a helicopter. And they'd also probably also drop the court clerk who leaked the opinion out, probably in handcuffs. They probably just sort of throw him right out of the side of a Chinook helicopter and then drop the opinion out on America. And then Clarence Thomas would be piloting this, Apache helicopter or the Chinook or whatever he's in, and bye, I'm out of here. And it'd be kind of a cool thing. But that didn't happen. They actually dropped it on a Friday. And, they do that. They do that in the federal bureaucracies. They do it on Fridays because they think most people are not going to be paying all that much attention. And many people aren't, they're just sort of, it's Friday. Should we pay attention to the news? I'm kind of out of energy. I don't really have it in me to go scream and shout about all this stuff. So that is sort of the context. And as you see, it just kind of carries on, end abortion violence. I'm a woman, not a womb. Forceps off my body into the hash heap of history where you belong. And so this is sort of the pro-life crowd. And let's see, make abortion unthinkable, right? So there's a pretty big sort of, pro-life contingent here until you get over here. Then you get the abortion on demand people and without apology. They just, I guess, I don't know, maybe like DoorDash, Uber Eats sort of abortions on demands. Can we just get overnight delivery on it or something? I don't know. I don't know how it works, but you can see right there here, abortion on demand now, abortion on demand without apology. We won't go back. We won't go back. And a lot of activity out there. This lady, the bullhorn lady, lots of bullhorns there. This was this sort of interaction here. These two people were getting a lot of attention because they did this for about, 5 minutes or so. And they were on either sides of the debate, obviously. And what they're chanting is Black Babies Matter, so it's kind of an interesting. Yeah, so, right, I mean, that kind of went on for quite a bit. And you can just sort of see, the context. And if you go back a little other way, right, there they go. They're still going. And she says, I am a vagina voter. What does that mean? I am a vagina voter with a capital T. I don't know. I don't know what that means. Does she vote with what? She doesn't. You don't vote with it. I mean, I don't. Granted, I don't have that much experience with the whole thing, but I don't know. I don't know how it works. Anyways, I'm not a penis voter. You know what I mean? I don't know. Anyways, so they're still going, and so it goes on for quite some time if you want to. So if you're interested in following that along, of course, go over to the Washington Post, but we'll fast forward a little bit. That's going on all in the morning, right? All morning long. And we're just like, all right, maybe the opinion comes, maybe it doesn't. And then the opinions were all supposed to drop, I think, at 10 a.m. Eastern time. That's right. It was 7 a.m. here. And so we're all just sort of, playing around with Twitter and trying to see if this stuff is going to drop at any moment. Like, we're waiting for the Supreme Court drop. Okay. And then it comes out, and here's what the decision sort of piece looked like. Now, this is the actual scene from the crowd. The Washington Post reporter, he's over here with the pro-abortion without apology crowd before he goes back over to, and I'll turn the volume up on this and we can listen. It actually, like, you actually hear sort of the screams coming up from the other direction. And then he runs over there and partakes in the celebration. So let's listen to this. It's about 2 minutes, and we'll just listen through. This is kind of the celebration moment when everybody realizes the drop. Okay, hear it? Now it comes in. Uh-oh. Everybody's realizing. Right outside the Supreme Court, United States of America. The end of Roe versus Wade. Bad law gone. Bye. Bye. Sorry about the volume there. Look at this guy drinking champagne. He popped the champagne. All right, so they're very excited. Obviously, a good day. Now, I wanted to go back to this guy with the the champagne. So there's one gentleman here, right? There's a champagne bottle, and he's like right in the middle of the crowd. He just pops it open, pops it right there. See it? Right there, and then he takes a big guzzle of it. He's still there. It is right there. Boom. Hilarious. All right, so that's the celebration moment. That's the moment that the crowd, literally right out in front of the Supreme Court of the United States, gets the news minutes after the drop, hits the new opinion in Dobbs versus Jackson. Boom, hits, and the crowd goes wild. Now, not all of the crowd goes wild. There's a couple people out there that are like, oh, gosh, this is just the worst. And let's see what we have here. First, I think we have this clip of, so this is the actual happy crowd. Now, I'm confused. I think these women might be under duress or coercion or some sort of patriarchal oppression. I'm not sure. I mean, that's what I've been told. But I can't see it here. If you see the patriarchal oppression, please let me know. Here it goes. This is what they're talking about after the decision comes out.
Back up. You don't want to trust the podium. That's all. and offer alternatives all over this country, even more than we're doing now. Open our hearts to life. Make us a culture of life in this nation. God, I pray that you will forgive us for the lives that are lost. God, forgive us of our national sin. And help us, Lord, to move on to the way.
I'm working.
You see these two gals over here, they're crying tears of oppression as they pray to patriarchal Lord. All right, now I think we see Marjorie Taylor Greene back there. Marjorie Taylor Greene, there she is, right? That's her right there. We're going to go to Marjorie in a minute because she's sort of, she's got something to say about security. Now these gals, obviously, and this guy, yeah, total oppression. Unbelievable. If only they knew how much worse their lives are now. Do they have any idea? Do they know? Well, somebody's going to educate him. Joe Biden's going to educate him. Let's check on Joe Biden. Where is he at? Oh, here we are. Looks like maybe we can. They've got the pre-feed rolling, and I'm sure Joe Biden's going to tell them how terrible their lives are now. And, well, that should be interesting. So we'll cue that up and wait for him to come out and yell at us. Here is the rest of this. Okay, so now I think there they are. They're taking selfies. They're celebrating. And no, that's not the button I wanted. Let's see. Okay, and so they wrap it up. Yes, they're celebrating. And then I think we saw, yeah, so the other reaction was from this sort of crowd, right? Now, this crowd, you know, was on the other side of the equation. Some people are very celebratory today. Some people, they don't even want to open their mouth, so they put tape over their mouths. They just don't want to even talk to you. It's like one level up above the, you know, when you have earpods in or your earphones or whatever. It's like, don't talk to me. It's kind of that universal symbol. It's like, I'm not available to you, right? This is like even one level above that. It's not even don't talk to me. Okay. It's, I'm not even going to talk to you. All right. You understand me? Because my mouth is literally taped. Now, there's a great book it's called Breathe by Jim, where he actually does talk about mouth taping. Breathe by Jim, what's his name? I listened to a talk by him. It goes, no, I can't find it. Anyways, doesn't matter. That was a tangent. Here is this lady who's very upset about the ruling.
My name is A.J. Hurley. I am the director of Survivors of the Abortion Holocaust. We raise a prayer for the 60 to 70 million unborn children that have either been poisoned or dismembered due to the violence of Roe v. Wade for the last 50 years in this country. And we raise a glass to the future of anti-abortion ministry.
Okay, so also very loud, a lot of loudness. Now, make out, not war, resist. She says, we're doing it anyway, which I think is insurrectionary. I wonder if she is part of a group, you know, we're doing it anyway, that type of language. F SCOTUS, look at this. F SCOTUS, we're doing it anyways. That's insurrectionary language. If she was like a group, if she was part of a group called the Proud Girls or something like that, or like the Abortion Keepers or something, right? And Donald Trump were in charge, then you know, that might be considered insurrection. I don't know. Because it says we're doing it anyways. That's open violation of the law, as you can see. Egregious behavior. So we can fast forward through a lot of the rest of this. And she's basically standing there silenced. Now, her mask is not on, which is dangerous to me. I don't think that's appropriate. But I think the mask plus the tape is probably a little too much. So, okay, let's go to the end of this and see what else we have with her. So she's just standing there in silence.
Chinese sea, it is so simple. You've heard it ever since you are a young baby. A person is a person. No.
Jeremy on Local says, he says, you know, actually the tape on her mouth might be a nice, pretty considerable quality of life improvement for everyone else in her life. Which is true. I'm sure it's true. I'm sure it's true. She doesn't seem like, you know, anyways, who knows? Probably a very nice gal. I should take that back. Okay. So she comes out and she says, you know, basically F off. And that we also saw Marjorie Taylor Greene. We'll get to her in a minute before we take a look at some of the political reaction. But here was another group saying, right, they were saying this must not stand, right? This is, that this is, I guess, something they're going to still fight against. I mean, this is the highest law of the land, right? This is the Supreme Court. I mean, if they want a constitutional right to abortion, they have to codify it into the Constitution, which means they have to go and amend it, which means they actually have to pass some legislation to do it, which they're not doing. Right? They don't just get to have some judges who just pass stuff because they like it. So they're saying this must not stand. I don't know what the next plan of action is. Maybe Joe Biden will tell us if he comes and talks.
It must not stand. Legal abortion on demand. Legal abortion on demand. This decision must not stand. This decision must not stand. What do we do next? How do we fight this? Legal abortion on demand. This decision must not stand. This decision must not stand. Legal abortion on demand. Legal abortion on demand. This decision must not stand. This decision must not stand. Legal abortion on demand. Legal abortion on demand. This decision.
Now she gives somebody else a bandana. Hey, bro, you want to come and scream with us? Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah. Okay, so now is that... No, it's not Terry Crews. I thought that might have been Terry Crews. I mean, that dude is swole right there. Yeah, he's swole up. I wonder what side he's on. I don't know, but who knows? Now, the crowd gets pretty quiet now, right? This is a sort of post-verdict. Everybody has gotten their cheering out of the way. Everybody had gotten their, you know, sort of a chants out of the way. And sort of just processing it. And that's it. I mean, that's kind of the scene. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene was also there. I was hoping that we could get to Biden first, but it looks like he might be running a little bit behind. They have the comments turned off. There's no chat, of course, for the live stream, but there's about 3,000 people watching over there. So we'll see what happens when that comes on. And now some people I saw in the chat were asking about some of the software that we use here. And this software is called Mindmeister, and it's pretty great. I actually pay for it because I use all the extra features, but it allows me to organize my thoughts in sort of it's really an outline format that's just really visual. So it's called Mindmeister, and you can open and close these things, like joining our community, kind of open and close these. Spotlight supporters are here, you know, shout out to our Spotlight supporters. And you can open and close this, sort of zoom in and zoom out. I use it for all sorts of stuff. I mean, the entire J6 Mindmap is built in this, and it's really easy to use. It's actually kind of fun to use. I actually kind of like outlining things in it because it's kind of beautiful. But that's what's going on. Now, Biden is still taking his sweet time, not a surprise. So let's go actually to Marjorie Taylor Greene and see what she had to say. Okay, now it's hard to hear her, but she's saying this is a dangerous time. It's because of the radical left. She's saying that the police are suiting up in riot gear to prepare for potential riots, right? And there has been a lot of this going on already. I mean, they were protesting outside of Kavanaugh's house, which is in violation of the law. There's U.S. code saying that is illegal. You can't do that. They were also protesting outside, or I think Amy Coney Barrett got some blood, something, sent to her or something, ridiculous stuff. They're also firebombing different pro-life organizations and, sort of getting aggressive with other politicians and things like that. So, stuff that if they were Republicans or Trump supporters would be automatically considered insurrectionary or seditious conspiracy, but they're not going to, of course, face the same type of repercussions because the people in charge are on their team. They run the DOJ. They run the FBI. They run many of the agencies that would be responsible for persecuting them. So it's going to very likely be a different set of standards. Now, that being said, okay, I think that there are probably a lot of Republicans out there or a lot of conservative people or let's say, J6 type sympathizers, okay, of which I am, okay, just to be clear on this, that might like to see some, violence or some mayhem because it might make them feel better about what happened on J6 or something like that. Okay. I am not in that camp, right? I don't want to see Antifa go torch the Supreme Court and then say, well, see, they did it, right? That's not what I'm interested in at all. I think violence is not good at all. And hopefully that doesn't happen, right? But if it does, what I would like to see is the same standard applied to everybody. Okay. In other words, I'd like to see, if we're not going to prosecute the BLM protesters to a maximal degree, then that same baseline standard should be also applied to the J6ers. Okay. And then if this also sort of extends into Antifa protesters who also go a little bit nuts, maybe I'd also extend that same courtesy to them. Okay, because this is politics and sometimes things get heated and sometimes people, step over a line a little bit. And I'm not excusing that, but I am saying we should set a standard baseline. If the standard baseline is you get prosecuted and thrown in solitary confinement for criminal trespass, okay, if the standard is we just set it at the J6 baseline, we say that's what we're going to do, then that same standard should apply to everybody else, right? It should also apply to BLM. It should also apply to the Antifa crowd or whatever happens on SCOTUS. That's my point, is that there should be some consistency between the two, not multiple tiers of justice. And I really think that's sort of a big point that Marjorie is making here. And but I want to be clear that there's sort of a dip, like there's some people who are I'm not saying Marjorie Taylor Greene is one of them, but I've seen some people on Twitter that are sort of almost salivating at the prospect of violence tonight, and that is not me. I don't want to see that happen. I would like for every single angry Democrat or angry Antifa person or angry abortion person to just recognize that this was bad case law. And the reason it was bad case law was because it was the judicial branch doing something that they're not allowed to do because they're the judicial branch. They're not the legislative branch. And we have a separation of powers in this country for a reason. And if you want your policies to be implemented, you got to do those through the normal mechanisms that are lawfully and constitutionally approved. You can't just recreate society because you have the court or something like this, right? Now, they're going to say that this is the conservative court remaking society. If you just look at it mechanically, right, what they're doing is they're saying you have to go back to the original interpretation of the founding documents. And if you actually read Roe versus Wade with some moral honesty and you take a look at it, they created the 3-tier framework, which was so bad they even threw it out in the case after that in Casey. So it wasn't good to begin with. It needed to go. It's finally gone. And that's not even commentary on the abortion act itself, right? It's bad law. All right, you get the point on that. Now, here is Marjorie Taylor Greene talking about potential violence. So they're talking about now the police left, and the police did leave. They were on their bikes and they sort of got out of there. It was actually weird. And we actually watched some of that, I think, at the Washington Post. Like they actually see here. Remember, so the cops were there, right? See, they formed this line. They have this big line here,
Today is
and then they actually do like scoot out of there.
a very solemn moment.
Oh wait, hey, Biden's here.
Today, the Supreme Court of the United States expressly took away a constitutional right from the American people
Okay.
that it had already recognized. They didn't limit it, they simply took it away. That's never been done to a right so important to so many Americans. But they did it. It's a sad day for the country. 50 years ago, Roe v. Wade was decided and has been the law of the land since then. This landmark case protected a woman's right to choose, her right to make intensely personal decisions with her doctor, free from the interference of politics. It reaffirmed basic principles of equality, that women have the power to control their own destiny, and it reinforced a fundamental right of privacy, a right of each of us to choose how to live our lives. Now, with Roe gone, let's be very clear. The health and life of women in this nation are now at risk.
There it is.
As chairman and ranking member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, as vice president and now as president of the United States, I've studied this case carefully. I've overseen more Supreme Court confirmations than anyone today, where this case was always discussed. I believe Roe v. Wade was the correct decision as a matter of constitutional law and application of the fundamental right to privacy and liberty in matters of family and personal autonomy. It was a decision
It's not what
on
it
a
did.
complex matter that drew a careful balance between a woman's right to choose earlier in her pregnancy and the state's ability to regulate later in her pregnancy. A decision with broad national consensus that most Americans of faith and backgrounds found acceptable, and that had been the law of the land for most of the lifetime of Americans today. And it was a constitutional principle upheld by justices appointed by Democrat and Republican presidents alike. Roe v. Wade was a 7-2 decision, written by a justice appointed by a Republican president, Richard Nixon.
They love that line. They love
In the
it.
5 decades that followed Roe v. Wade, justices appointed by Republican presidents from Eisenhower, Nixon, and Reagan, George W. Bush, were among the justices who voted to uphold the principles set forth in Roe v. Wade. It was 3 justices named by one president, Donald Trump, who were the core of today's decision to upend the scales of justice and eliminate a fundamental right for women in this country. Make no mistake, this decision is a culmination of a deliberate effort over decades to upset the balance of our law.
Yes.
It's a realization of an extreme ideology and a tragic error by the Supreme Court, in my view.
Whoa, extreme
The court
ideology.
has done what it has never done before, expressly take away a constitutional right that is so fundamental to so many Americans that had already been recognized. The court's decision to do so will have real and immediate consequences. State laws banning abortion are automatically taking effect today, jeopardizing the health of millions of women, some without exceptions. So extreme that women could be punished for protecting their health. So extreme that women and girls were forced to bear their rapist's child.
Wow.
With the child, a consequence. It just stuns me. So extreme that doctors will be criminalized for fulfilling their duty to care. Imagine having a young woman have to carry the child of incest as a consequence of incest. No option. Too often the case. The poor women are going to be hit the hardest. It's cruel. In fact, the court laid out state laws criminalizing abortion that go back to the 1800s as rationale. The court literally taking America back 150 years. This is a sad day for the country, in my view. but it doesn't mean the fight's over. Let me be very clear and unambiguous. The only way we can secure a woman's right to choose, and the balance that existed, is for Congress to restore the protections of Roe v. Wade as federal law.
That would be the right way to do it, yeah.
No executive action from the president can do that.
Right. No, or from the court.
Congress, as it appears, lacks the votes to do that now. Voters need to make their voices heard. This fall, we must elect more senators and representatives who will codify women's right to choose into federal law once again.
Election pivot.
Elect more state leaders to protect this right at the local level. We need to restore the protections of Roe as law of the land. We need to elect officials who will do that. This fall, Roe is on the ballot. Personal freedoms are on the ballot. The right to privacy, liberty, equality, they're all on the ballot. Until then, I will do all of my power to protect a woman's right in states where they will face the consequences of today's decision. While the court's decision cast a dark shadow over a large swath of the land, many states in this country still recognize a woman's right to choose. So, if a woman lives in a state that restricts abortion, the Supreme Court's decision does not prevent her from traveling from her home state to the state that allows it.
Yeah.
It does not prevent a doctor in that state from treating her. As the Attorney General has made clear, women must remain free to travel safely to another state to seek care they need. My administration will defend that bedrock right.
Nobody's challenging that.
Any state or local official, high or low, tries to interfere with a woman's exercising her basic right to travel, I will do everything in my power to fight that deeply un-American attack.
Nobody's talking about the right to travel.
My administration will also protect a woman's access to medications that are approved by the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, like contraception, which is essential for preventative health care.
Now, this might be an issue. Yeah, this is Griswold.
Mifepristone, which the FDA approved 20 years ago to safely end early pregnancies and is commonly used to treat miscarriages. Some states are saying that they'll try to ban or severely restrict access to these medications. But extremist governors and state legislators are looking to block the mail or search a person's medicine cabinet or control a woman's actions by tracking data on her apps she uses are wrong and extreme and out of touch with the majority of Americans. The American Medical Association, the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists wrote to me and Vice President Harris stressing that these laws are not based on evidence and asking us to act to protect access to care. They say by limiting access to these medicines, maternal mortality will climb in America. That's what they say. Today, I'm directing the Department of Health and Human Services to take steps to ensure these critical medications are available.
You can see the teleprompter reflection in the door. Can you see that?
Politicians cannot interfere in the decisions that should be made between a woman and her doctor. And my administration will remain vigilant as the implications of this decision play out. I've warned about how this decision risks the broader right to privacy for everyone. That's because Roe recognized the fundamental right to privacy that has served as a basis for so many more rights that we've come to take for granted, that are ingrained in the fabric of this country. The right to make the best decisions for your health. The right to use birth control, a married couple in the privacy of their bedroom, for God's sake. The right to marry the person you love. Now, Justice Thomas said as much today. He explicitly called to reconsider the right of marriage equality, the right of couples to make their choices on contraception. This is an extreme and dangerous path the court is now taking us on. Let me close with 2 points. First, I call on everyone, no matter how deeply they care about this decision, to keep all protests peaceful. Peaceful, peaceful, peaceful. No intimidation. Violence is never acceptable. Threats and intimidation are not speech. We must stand against violence in any form, regardless of your rationale. Second, I know so many of us are frustrated and disillusioned that the court has taken something away that's so fundamental. I know so many women are now going to face incredibly difficult situations. I hear you. I support you. I stand with you. The consequences and the consensus of the American people, core principles of equality, liberty, dignity, and the stability of the rule of law demand that Roe should not have been overturned. With this decision, the conservative majority of the Supreme Court shows how extreme it is.
Extreme.
How far removed they are from the majority of this country. They've made the United States an outlier among developed nations in the world. But this decision must not be the final word.
Okay.
My administration will use all of its appropriate lawful powers. But Congress must act. And with your vote,
As they should have from the beginning.
act. You can have the final word. This is not over. Thank you very much. More to say this in weeks to come. Thank you.
Questions? Wait. And right out the door, there's Joe Biden. All right, so about what you'd expect out of the guy. And let me resize all these windows here since I just blew that up. So, all right, well, that's the president. Now, a couple interesting things I was taking some notes on. You know, I am not sort of the, abortion states' rights fact checker guru type of person on this topic. But, there's a lot there that I think that you could easily, unpack, and what the president did is gave us a bunch of different statements. And a lot of them were factual sounding about what's going to happen to women and what are the consequences and what all this stuff will be. But remember, we've got 50 different states. And so oftentimes what people will do in these situations, especially politicians, is they will take one particular fact out of context and they'll try to apply it to sort of the nationwide narrative. In other words, they'll take one state that has one particularly harsh rule about incest or about rape or about one of these, really, hopefully outlier situations. And then they'll apply that to sort of the entire demographic, the entire domain at large. And they'll say, because that one state has that, that's possible everywhere else, but it may be true, but it doesn't mean that that is what's going to happen everywhere else. And so that is the president, some things that really did stand out. I mean, first of all, some pretty colorful language there. He actually said the R word, the rape word. He talked about incest and those words. He talked about this emanating out of extremist ideology, meaning the conservative judges, extremists, the Supreme Court, extremists. Okay. And I know this word gets thrown around a lot, but it's consequential. Okay, if the 6 Supreme Court judges who all voted in favor of this are now being labeled as extremists, does that word have that much meaning anymore? I mean, these are some of the most intelligent people in the world, highly accomplished. Their records are about as immaculate as they can possibly be. That's why they get on the court. And to call them extremists, I mean, if they're extremists, what is everybody else? Like literal Nazis or something? Because there are people who have, opinions that are more to the right of some of these judges. And so if they're extremists, then my goodness, everybody else must be just, literally off the chart. So it's a pattern that has been continuing on for a long period of time. If you vote for Trump, if you're a J6er, if you're anybody who's, involved in any sort of conservative ideology, you're a domestic homegrown violent extremist even. The other thing that came up in this, which was insane, is the right to travel, which is a ridiculous red herring, meaning that there's no reason why that should even come into the conversation. It's not even at issue Joe Biden saying that if the Supreme Court says that your state can't or won't allow you to go get the type of abortion you want, the abortion on demand, and you want to travel to another state, like from Arizona to California, for example, that you cannot be prohibited from doing that. And so the next question is, are states going to pass laws and check people at the borders before they exit the state? And so now he's sort of inserting that fear, which is not anything that has been brought up in this opinion or any others, as far as I know, as an undue restriction on abortion, right? But he's saying he's going to fight on that, fight, so that people can't leave one state to go to another state. It wasn't the subject of this opinion. But it's a red herring. It's going to scare a lot of people, right? It's going to make people think about that movie or whatever that show is with the women in the red dresses. And so, it's just, okay. So the end of the world, the sky is falling as usual. We know, and this was something that we were, prognosticating about for some time. It's just one hyperbolic, hyperventilating narrative after another. It starts with COVID, then it goes to the next one, to Ukraine, then it goes to gun violence. Now we're on abortion. Okay, we're on season 4, abortion. And all right, we'll have to deal with that for a while. But Biden was very clear about this. Go vote if you want this to change. And first and foremost, yes, that's true. You can go and vote at your local state level, which is how it should have been from the day one, because it wasn't a federally constituted right enshrined by the founders. It's just not there. And if you want it to be there, federal government, then you have to go and amend the Constitution or codify it. And then the courts can decide what to do with it there. But the courts don't create it first. And that's all that we're returning to. It's only to that framework. Okay, it's not the end of the world, but they're going to make it that way. So Joe Biden was out and, of course, gave us that speech. Now, not much consequential. Like, he didn't say the DOJ is going to do something, like egregious. We're going to disregard the Supreme Court's ruling. He didn't say anything like that. It was more or less just kind of the litany that you'd expect to come out of the White House. So not a huge surprise, but we did have some interesting things pop up. And first, let's go to Pelosi. Now, Pelosi, I think, was a little bit more hyperbolic, right? She's a little bit actually flabbergasted. I mean, first of all, look at her face right here. All right. She's like, she needs a drink. She may have had too many drinks the night before. I don't know. Her husband just got charged with a DUI, Paul Pelosi. He came back with a .082 BAC in California. And I haven't taken a deep dive on this case quite yet. I did start a mind map on the Paul Pelosi DUI. But Paul Pelosi, .082, which is not a high number, okay? That's just barely over the legal limit. And there was something interesting that I think I saw, but I have not investigated it, which was there may be an issue in his case, like a defense issue that might be very useful for him in terms of dismissing his case. I haven't looked at it yet, but I think that there may have been a time of driving problem. All right. So in Arizona, if you get stopped for a DUI and they draw your bodily sample outside of 2 hours out after they pulled you over, that introduces problems into the case, because now you have to do what's called a retrograde analysis in order to determine what the BAC was within that 2 hour window of driving. And it turns into this complex problem that introduces all sorts of error into the math equations. And it makes it difficult for the prosecutors, especially if it's a close BAC, especially if it's really close to that blood alcohol content limit. So in other words, Paul is at .082. If he is outside of that 2 hour window, you have to do a retrograde analysis. So if his blood came back at .082, let's say 2.5 hours after driving, right? You could theoretically, the government could probably retrograde that back, unless he had consumed before he got into the car. So you could see how they'd have to sort of connect that back, and it becomes an evidentiary problem, essentially, is what this is. Even if the number could theoretically be higher, it's an evidentiary problem, and that can be a justification for a dismissal or a reduction, a lower plea. So that might be evident in Paul Pelosi's case. I'm not sure about that, but it remains to be seen. He is still charged, and so maybe Nancy Pelosi is just she's having a really bad week, to be honest. First of all, husband was out, doing Lord knows what at some Napa Valley wine party. Okay, who knows who he was with or who was there. Nancy Pelosi's in Washington, D.C., having to corral the squad, like a herd of cats. And she's just, you got a what? Honey, I got a DUI. What? Okay. And she wakes up on a Friday morning and abortion is now in peril. Here's what she sounds like.
This is deadly serious.
Whoa.
But we are not going to let this pass. A woman's right to choose, reproductive freedom, is on the ballot in November. We cannot allow them to take charge so that they can institute their goal.
She's mad.
Which is to criminalize reproductive freedom.
Have you seen her this mad before?
Right now, they're saying in states that they can arrest doctors and all the rest. What is happening here? What is happening here? Woman's fundamental health decisions are her own to make in consultation with her doctor, her faith, her family, not some right-wing politicians that Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell packed the court with.
She is mad. Is she not mad? Holy moly. She's angry right now. She's hungover or just really upset. And she's saying that the Republicans packed the court. Did you hear that language from her? Did you see that? She said that the Republicans packed the court. No, they didn't. They just nominated justices. Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away. Rest in peace, Ruth. And Amy Coney Barrett slotted on in there, didn't she? Now the tides have turned, Miss Pelosi. So they didn't pack the court. It was the court was the same size. They just replaced nominees. Ruth Bader Ginsburg should have retired. And you wouldn't have been in this situation. This whole thing may have never happened if Ruth Bader Ginsburg had retired. Oh, it stings. It just hurts, doesn't it? Oh, it's like, right there in the back, and then they twist it. It's not good. So, all right, she's very upset. Let's go back to Nancy. This is fun.
While Republicans seek to punish and control women, Democrats will keep fighting ferociously to enshrine Roe v. Wade into the law of the land. This cruel ruling is outrageous and heart-wrenching, but make no mistake, again, it's all on the ballot in November.
So they're going to use this as an election, fundraising. There are a bunch of Democrats right now just typing away emails. Oh, $100, $500 requests, fundraising emails going out all over the place. Do you know, Miss Mary, that you're going to be dead in a week because of what the Supreme Court did to you? It's true. And Mary's like, I'm 77. I've been menopausal for 30 years. What are you talking about? But Mary's angry. She's like, you're right. You're right about it. I might drop dead tomorrow because I can't go to a Planned Parenthood or something. Okay. So Nancy, very angry. Now let's just reverse that a little bit. Cause look at this. Look at this face here. That is just, she is not happy. She's looking at the camera, dead eye. She's looking at you, America, dead eye. All right, here it is.
It's all on the ballot in November. The Supreme Court has ended a constitutional right. This is 50 years proclaimed a constitutional right. What happened today was historic in many respects.
That's true.
Historic in that it had not recognized a constitutional right and then reversed it. This is a first.
I can't get over this little pause here. Where is it?
Wade into the law of the land. This cruel ruling is outrageous and heart-wrenching, but make no mistake, again, it's all on the ballot in November.
Oh, man, she is mad. So she's going to go home and she's going to say, dang it, Paul. In addition to your arraignment coming up in August, now we've got an election problem and it's going to be just a lot of fun. Okay, so Now, we are going to take a look at the opinion here, but I'm going to save that heavy lifting for the end. We've got one more thing I want to jump into, which is this here, the story about this national emergency. Okay, so this is being floated around. It's like, what can we do? What can possibly be done about all this now that democracy is ending again? It's like democracy keeps ending every 6 months. COVID ended it, and then the Ukraine ended it. If we didn't stop old Pooty Poo, and then gun violence is going to end it. And then the Supreme Court came out yesterday and they said, oh no, you do have a right to keep and bear arms because that's also in the Constitution. And then they had another one today. So that yesterday we had the end of America due to guns. Today we have the end of America due to women's health issues and abortion. And so here is this woman, what's her name? Guthrie or something. I don't know what it is. She's over on CBS and she's, wow, here's what's going on from her.
I want to explain what this now means, that there is no longer a federal or constitutional right to an abortion, as Roe versus Wade has been overturned by the Supreme Court. Also, Casey overruled as well. I can show you now. There are 26 states across America that are certain or likely to ban at least some access to abortions. Here they are. 13 of the states have already passed those so-called trigger laws that in some cases ban all abortions, no exceptions for cases of rape, incest, or to protect the life of a mother. There are 16 states with Democratic-controlled state legislatures and the District of Columbia that have raced to pass laws that will protect a woman's right to an abortion. We can show you those states as well. We have a graphic for that. What I'm trying to tell you with the red states that essentially that it would immediately ban abortion, and these states that have moved to protect abortion rights, we are going to have a patchwork of America. This is a tale of two Americas about where you can get abortion in America and where you cannot. It's just seismic, this decision.
Seismic. Where can you get an abortion? Where can you not get an abortion? And it's going to be really just, changing the entire framework of the American, nation here. And because it's such a cataclysmic change, what we know is that there are congresswomen who are already very upset about this. In particular, we have Ayanna Pressley. Ayanna Pressley is, I forget where she's from, but she said today, she posted this on Twitter. She came out right away and said, overturning Roe versus Wade would be a direct assault on Black lives. And, there was that clip that we played earlier, actually here, where there was a conversation about, here's the police leaving. Remember this? Remember I said the police left? Watch. They honk, get out of the way, and they all leave. Like they're there posted up. I mean, maybe these guys are just passing through, but there were the bikes. Remember there were also the bikes? Yeah, okay. So I think that's what the guy who was referencing, that was from earlier in the show. Sorry for the tangent there, but yeah, there was also, sort of the conversation that was taking place earlier in the morning about Black babies matter, right? And so you see this conversation is coming back into fruition. This is Ayanna Pressley, and she says, Congresswoman, which is surprising, that's why I'm leading calls for POTUS to respond to this threat as the public health emergency that it is, right? So sort of a public health national declaration of an emergency. And this exclusive came over from USA Today. And here's, I have to sneeze. Come on. Oh, I think it went away. I almost just lost it right there. It almost hit me like a bag of bricks. It almost hit me like the Roe versus Wade decision. But here you can see, this is the link from CBS, USA Today. In fact, here it is. Representative Cori Bush, she shares her personal experience with abortion. So we'll just go ahead and skip that one. But we do see that it says a group of 20 Black congresswomen wrote a public letter on Friday to President Joe Biden, insisting that he protect access to abortion by declaring a public health national emergency. Another national emergency, declaring action be taken. Coalition led by Ayanna Pressley and others are the chair of the pro-choice caucus abortion rights and access task force. They're all Democratic members in the House of Representatives. The lawmakers urge Biden to use any and all executive authorities to address the public health crisis that will impact our nation after Roe versus Wade is dismissed. They sent the letter over there. They say we can never go back. They're trying to mobilize black women against the decision that came out. So let's take a look and see what this one here says. This is something that came out just yesterday. So they actually were expecting this, it sounds like. How long is this? 5 pages. Let's see who signed off on this. Cori Bush, Barbara Lee, Joyce Beatty, Yvette Clarke, Ilhan Omar's there. You know her. And then we have Mary Strickland, Karen Bass. They all signed off on this thing. And let's see what they're asking for. Use all executive authorities to address the public health crisis. Declare a public health emergency. Utilize additional flexibility. They say blacks are going to be most at risk. A strong majority of black women view abortion as essential health care, 66%. And they want abortion to be more easily accessible in their communities, 81%. Every day we wait to respond is a day wasted in mitigating this health crisis. Black women and pregnant women are going to be more likely to be prosecuted, according to this letter. And that if you force people to undergo this stuff, to undergo an unwanted pregnancy, it's going to put their mental health at risk as well. And so they're talking already that there's already this, pretty big, it sounds like, in the midst of a black maternal mortality crisis that's already robbing us of the lives of black women. Restricting access to abortion will disproportionately endanger the lives of black women and pregnant people. Banning abortion across the United States will result in a 21% increase amongst maternal deaths across all races and a 33% increase amongst black individuals in particular. And so they're demanding, really, that the 21 million black people, they're writing a letter on behalf of the 21 million black women in America. Wow. Wow. I wonder, that's interesting. I wonder if they're writing for all black women. We write as black women lawmakers, proud members of the Congressional Black Caucus, and on behalf of more than 21 black women in America, to urge you to protect the right to abortion. Well, I don't know, actually. Now that they mention it, the guy who was on the pro-life argument side was a male, remember? He was a gentleman. Remember this lady was screaming at him? Remember the vagina voter? Okay. She was in a conversation with somebody. See, and all those cops, where'd they go? They were all there, and then they all left. Where'd they end up going? Yeah, so, all right. Well, so that's interesting. I didn't realize that that they were writing on behalf of all 21 million black women in America. I would have thought that maybe there would have been 1 or 2 black women in America that didn't agree with them, but I don't know. I mean, they are Congress people, and they probably know more than I do. So I guess I better shut my mouth on this topic. This could get complicated. This could be a little dicey, isn't it? All right. So that's the letter that came out. They're demanding a declaration of some sort of a public health or national emergency crisis in order to deal with Roe versus Wade. And my friends, that's sort of the headlines and the updates. Let's take a look at some comments to wrap it up. I wanted to show you the opinion briefly. Actually, let's take a quick look at the opinion. It is a little bit of heavy lifting, so I just want to kind of skim through it. Let's see here and just show you what it is. It is a really, really big document. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on it, but here is what the opinion looked like. Okay. The New York Times gave us this graphic today. They say how the court split in the 6-3 ruling overturning Roe versus Wade. 6 conservative judges on top. Amy Coney Barrett, of course, is the newest addition to the court, joined by Gorsuch and Kavanaugh. These 3 judges right here in the middle, those are all Trump appointees. My goodness, talk about Donald Trump leaving sort of a lasting legacy on the court. Oh, that must make this just even that much worse, right? It's Trump. Trump's basically responsible for all this. And so Gorsuch, Barrett, and Kavanaugh, They're on the court majority, joined by Alito, Thomas, and Roberts, Sotomayor, Kagan, and Breyer down there in the dissent. And the summary comes over from the SCOTUS blog. And so I'll hit this one, and then I'll just kind of show you the opinion. But it says the decision was written by Judge Alito. We already talked about some of this since it did leak. A very anticipated ruling. The vote to overturn Roe was 5-4, and they overturned, 3 liberal judges wrote dissents. The decision came in Dobbs. It was a challenge. So the original case was a 2018 Mississippi law, bans virtually all abortions after the 15th week of pregnancy. Law carved out exceptions for medical emergency and in cases of severe fetal abnormality, but did not make cases or exceptions for cases involving rape or incest. Never went into effect. It was blocked by the Court of Appeals. And then it went all the way up to the Supreme Court. And the opinion is, like I said, it's very large because of the dissent and the concurrence, but we can see it is here. And as usual, they gave us a syllabus, and we spent some time previously. Actually, let me pull it up on this document. Okay, this is the actual opinion from a different piece of software. Actually, this is the Edge browser that I use just to mark up these opinions. But you can see here, it is the October term. It says this is the syllabus. We talked about this yesterday when we read the gun rights case yesterday. But they talk about some background. This is the background. Mississippi's Gestational Act provides that this, quote, except in medical emergency or in the case of severe fetal abnormality, a person shall not perform an abortion. We have Jackson Women's Health. They're an abortion clinic. One of its doctors, they challenged that law, no abortions. They said, well, that's illegal. They say it violates our precedents in Planned Parenthood versus Casey and Roe versus Wade, saying we have a constitutional right to abortion. The district court, lower level court, came out in favor of the respondents and said, no, that law is illegal. Mississippi, you're in trouble. Fifth Circuit also agreed. Mississippi, you lose. Before this case, the case went up to the court. And they say that the Constitution does not confer a right to abortion. Held. The ruling from the court. Held. The Constitution does not confer a right to abortion. Roe and Casey are overruled. The authority to regulate abortion is returned to the people and their elected representatives. Oh my goodness. The critical question is whether the Constitution, properly understood, actually does confer a right to abortion. Casey's controlling opinion skipped over that question and reaffirmed Roe solely on the basis of stare decisis. And what that means is that there were these two really pivotal cases in abortion, and they're called Planned Parenthood versus Casey and Roe versus Wade. Roe came out first, and they gave us that garbage 3-tier framework, that trimester framework, that said essentially, during the first trimester, you can get an abortion. During the second trimester, maybe some regulations on abortion. And then on the third trimester, yes, you can have a lot more regulations on abortion. And all of this was created by these judges. Okay. And they're not legislators. Okay. They don't get to do that stuff. That's what the Congress is for, to create these frameworks and do that. The courts just say, yes, that's constitutional, or no, that's not constitutional. They don't take a problem and then solve it and then give it back out. Okay. It's built that way for a reason. And we're not going to get into all that here. Then Casey came out, and on top of that, and Casey basically said, well, Roe kind of established a constitutional right to abortion. And so because we have what's called stare decisis, which means we follow what the prior cases say, so that courts aren't spiraling all over the place, right? You don't want courts to act like the White House, where it's like Trump and then Biden, and then Trump and then Biden. You want some consistency, so you've got some, framework to rely on as lawyers. Like if we wake up every time the presidency changes. I'm a practicing criminal defense lawyer, R&R Law Group. Our link is down in the description below. We love to help good people charged with crimes in the state of Arizona. But if I wake up and the entire, law changes because a new governor takes over, right? That makes our job very difficult. And so we want consistency. And it's also more fair that way when we can anchor some opinions into the ground. But they said that Casey now, which came after Roe, the only reason that Casey was really something that should stick is because it was relying on Roe based on stare decisis. But they're saying that, but Roe came out of nowhere. So they say a proper application of stare decisis requires an assessment of the strength of the grounds on which Roe was based, right? So like if Roe is this house of cards and they put Casey on top of Roe and they say, well, Casey's pretty good. If Casey's pretty good and it's still based on Roe and we take Roe out, then everything's got to go. And that's basically what they're saying. So the court turns to that. They turn to the standard talking about protecting liberty interests. They say the Constitution makes no express reference to the right to abortion, but several constitutional provisions have been offered as potential homes for an implicit constitutional right, right? And this was sort of the premise of Roe, that even though the Constitution doesn't say it exists, what we're talking about is an implied right. There's this penumbra of rights. There is this way that we can read the Constitution in its entirety, and we can say, well, they give you a lot of other rights, and we can sort of piece this together, and we can say, because they give you those, they would probably also give you these. And they sort of read it into the Constitution. They say Roe held that abortion right is part of the right to privacy that springs from the First, Fourth, Fifth, Ninth, and 14th Amendments. So what the lawyers, the judges in the Roe case did, the actual judges, not the lawyers working on the cases, they looked at the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, the Ninth Amendment, and the 14th Amendment. And they said, that creates this nice little penumbra of rights. And from those, even though they don't talk about abortion, they talk about things like the free speech and right to counsel, stuff like that, or your right against self-incrimination, like in the Fifth Amendment. And the Fifth Amendment, right, because you have the right against self-incrimination, that's sort of a right to privacy. You're private in your own mind and your own thoughts. And therefore, we can extrapolate from the Fifth Amendment, which says nothing about abortion, that maybe that right to privacy also should be considered in the right to abortion. And so they're grasping from all these other amendments to cobble it together. The Casey court then, after Roe, grounded its decision solely on the theory that the right to obtain an abortion is part of, quote, liberty, protected by the 14th Amendment due process clause. Others have suggested that support can be found in the 14th Amendment equal protection clause, which is a different part of the 14th Amendment. And remember, like each one of these sentences is like a different clause, right? But that theory is squarely foreclosed by the court's precedents, which established that a state's regulation of abortion is not a sex-based classification and not subject to heightened scrutiny. Okay, now we're getting into some heavy constitutional standard stuff, so we'll jump over that. Next, the court examines whether the right to obtain an abortion is rooted in our nation's history. So this first section is sort of talking about this penumbra of rights that they gathered from elsewhere. Then we talk about the tradition, the history of abortion, and whether it's part of what we call ordered liberty. If, as a society, we want to move towards ordered liberty, how do we get there? The court finds that the right to abortion is not deeply rooted in the nation's history. The underlying theory that Casey is based on is that this comes from the due process clause. But that's been pretty controversial, they say. The court's decisions have held that the due process clause protects two categories of substantive rights, those rights guaranteed by the first eight amendments of the Constitution, and those that are fundamental but not mentioned elsewhere in the Constitution. So we have these two sort of buckets of rights, clearly articulated rights in the first 8 amendments, and other rights that are deemed fundamental that are not specifically in the Constitution. In deciding whether a right falls into either one of these categories, the question is whether that right is deeply rooted in our history and our tradition, and whether it is, quote, essential to our scheme of ordered liberty. Two tests. This term liberty alone provides little guidance, and so we have to look at historical inquiries to determine whether it is a liberty interest. In interpreting this liberty interest, we must guard against the natural human tendency to confuse what the 14th Amendment protects with what the court's own ardent views and what liberty Americans should enjoy. So if we're seeing what's happening here, the court is saying that there is a strong difference between what the 14th Amendment says and what judges and American people want the 14th Amendment to say. And so judges cannot insert their own interpretations or insert, for example, the right to abortion into a place where it doesn't exist. The court has been reluctant to recognize rights that are not mentioned in the Constitution. And so they say, guided by the history and tradition that map the essential components of ordered liberty, the court finds the 14th Amendment clearly does not protect the right to an abortion, okay? They say, until the latter part of the 20th century, there was no support in American law for a constitutional right to abortion at all. No state constitutional provision had recognized such a right. Until a few years before Roe, no federal or state court had recognized such a right either, nor had any scholarly treatise. Indeed, abortion had long been a crime in every single state. At common law, abortion was criminal in at least some stages of pregnancy and was regarded as unlawful and could have very serious consequences at all stages. American law followed the common law until a wave of statutory restrictions in the 1800s expanded criminal liability for abortions, making it more criminal. By the time the 14th Amendment was adopted, 3/4 of states, and the 14th Amendment was back in the 1800s, about 1860s, I believe, right after during the Reconstruction era. 3/4 of the states had made abortion a crime at any stage of the presidency. Okay, so not that long ago. The consensus endured until the day Roe was decided, which is not that long ago. Roe either ignored or misstated this history, and Casey declined to reconsider Roe because of its faulty historical analysis. Okay? It's a garbage opinion. Respondents here argue that this history doesn't matter, and it flies in the face of the court, that the standard that they applied. The solicitor repeats Roe's claim that it is doubtful that abortion was ever firmly established as a common law crime, and they gave their opinions there. But we move ahead. Yeah, actually, let's go back up to this paragraph. Instead of seriously pressing the argument that abortion has deep roots, right? Because it doesn't, obviously, that argument is bunk. Supporters of Roe and Casey say that abortion as a right is an integral part of a broader entrenched right. So if they're going to lose the argument and saying that there's a long history of this in America, let's try something else. Let's see if we can pivot and say that this is a fundamental right to privacy, right? It's a different issue. It's an intimate and personal choice. It's something that is central to personal dignity and autonomy. It's the relationship between you and your doctor, right? They talk about this boundary. Roe and Casey struck a balance, they say, between the interest of a woman who wants an abortion and the interest of what they termed, quote, a potential life. But the people of various states may evaluate those interests differently, right? That we may say that a woman's right to an abortion versus the potential of life, maybe one state says abortion on demand, the other says zero abortions, because they weigh those interests very differently. The nation's historical understanding of ordered liberty does not prevent the people's elected representatives from deciding how abortion should be regulated. Finally, the court considers whether a right to abortion is a part of a broader entrenched right supported by other precedent. And the court concludes the right to obtain an abortion is just not a component of one of those rights. Stare decisis, they say, also does not justify the continued acceptance. Stare decisis plays an important role and does protect the interest of those who have taken action in reliance on a past decision. The court has identified factors to be considered. We have a subsection here. Let's see what we got now. You can see a lot of stuff here. So we'll just fast forward a little bit and jump into your questions. We can see, we close here. Mississippi's Gestational Act is supported by the legislator and their specific findings, which include the state's interest in protecting the life of an unborn. These are legitimate interests, and they provide a rational basis for the Gestational Age Act. And it follows, therefore, that it's legal. Abortion presents a profound moral question. The Constitution does not prohibit the citizens of each state from regulating or prohibiting it. Roe and Casey arrogated that authority. The court overrules those decisions and returns that authority to the people and their elected representatives, reversed and remanded, written by Judge Alito, delivering the opinion of the court, Judge Thomas, Judge Gorsuch, Judge Kavanaugh, Judge Barrett, all joining. Judge Roberts filing a concurring opinion. Sotomayor, Kagan, and Breyer dissenting. And that, my friends, is the syllabus, the head note of the full opinion. The full opinion, as you can see, right, this is it. We just keep going and going and going and going and going. And you can see a lot of that. I think the first 70-something pages are the full opinion. And then we get to the concurring opinion. And then, and then we get all the way down to the dissenting opinions. It's a lot. So there's a lot there. And there's going to be a lot more analysis to come out. I don't think that it's any different from the original opinion, the one that was leaked, but I'm not sure. Oftentimes, attorneys will sort of do what's called redlining, and will compare and contrast both documents. You'll sort of put documents on, and what's different between the two. I'm sure there will be more analysis from many more people and additional reactions from the politicians. But enough of them. Let's see what you have to say about this from our friends on YouTube with those very generous super chats, and from our supporters over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And I'm doing a quick refresh over on Locals. Let's see what we've got down here. John M16 starts us off. He says, this reminds me of the chat. Hey, ho, ho, Roe versus Wade has got to go. Yes, it does, John. And it's gone, my friend. Grouchy old cat ladies here. Says, I encourage everyone who has pro-choice friends to inform them it's not the end of abortions. True, totally true. Even the states that are pro-life allow them for life-threatening issues, rape, and incest. Companies and nonprofits are footing the bill to transport those who want an abortion to a state that will give them one. We need to get the word out to keep the peace so good people don't get caught up in the riots that might happen. Totally agree. Completely agree with that, right? Like I said, I think some people are salivating over the prospect of violence, and I am not one of them at all, okay? Even if it might be good for the Republican Party, or I don't care about any of that. It's ridiculous. I watched live on AP someone shouting, wait until tonight. We must fight, fight, fight. I hope that does not happen, right? It doesn't serve anybody. Violence is not good. I really hope that doesn't happen. Thanks for sharing that great message, Bonnie. RS Brem is here, says Sticks and others are already predicting riots tonight. Hunker down. I'm willing to bet there's going to be more calls for court packing. I think that's very good, very, very astute. I think that part of the reason you hear some of this language from Nancy Pelosi and others is that if they say the word court packing enough, they'll say the Republicans already did the court packing. And so what we're doing is not actually court packing. And so we're justified in doing court packing. But I don't think they're going to be able to get it done. I mean, there's not enough time. There's not enough political willpower. The whole, the court's going to stay the same, and the Republicans are going to be in charge soon. Three Girlies is here, says, ding, ding, Roe is dead, babies live, and states decide. Yay! And Grouchy Old Cat Lady is also there, excited about that. Justin is here, says, SCOTUS made 2 great decisions in 2 days. It's about time we see the country somewhat put back on track. Looking forward to your live stream. And that was earlier. So I posted in the comments, we're going live later. Drop some comments down below. And that's what we've got here on Locals. Justice Obsessed says, buckle up. Unfortunately, people are becoming unhinged. I just saw a letter warning Catholic churches to be aware and to be on guard because they might be targeted. My guess is any church who is not for abortion will be targets. As I said, I really hope that that is not the case, because that would be a big, big problem. I see a couple super chats that came in over on YouTube, and thank you for sending those in. I appreciate all of that support. First one is from Jenny B. Says, Trump put this in place when he appointed Kay and Amy. That's true. And Gorsuch, right? He got Gorsuch. Trump got 3 appointees. Jenny B sent that one in. Thank you, Jenny. And that's going to be his legacy. And that's going to make it a whole lot worse. Jenny B has been a member for 3 months, Jenny. Jenny's been a member for 3 months. Peas and Butter is also a member in the House. Zulu's also a member in the House. And I'm grateful for our members. We have, by the way, our monthly, it's not monthly, but it's going to be our member mastermind, which is coming up here actually next week, 1 week from yesterday, 12:30 p.m. Pacific, 3:30 Eastern. It's going to be a private live stream, an unlisted YouTube live stream. And we're going to go through some, not really political stuff, but some personal development coach. It's called a mastermind. And if you want to know more about what a mastermind is, I would encourage you to read chapter 10 of Think and Grow Rich, classic by Napoleon Hill. And actually, a lot of the audiobooks are available on YouTube, so you don't even have to pay for it. You just go get chapter 10 and listen to it if you'd like. But we're going to do a little bit of a format sort of following that book on Thursday. So shout out to all of our members. And I see that we just had somebody else become a member, but I don't know where it went. So shout out to Jenny B. Three Papitos is here, says, do you think we're going to be covering this today? Happy Friday. So excited you're live streaming. Did you think that we were going to be covering this today? And I did actually. So let me hear. Why are those not popping up? Yes, there it is. So here, there it is. Three Papitos says, did you think, I sort of kind of did. I was thinking that they might drop it on a Friday because Fridays are slower news days and, people kind of want to get back to their families and, go live a weekend. Whereas people are really plugged into the news during the week. So a Friday drop seems good. And the sooner the better, right? I think in terms of Republicans, the faster they can get it dropped and get this thing cleared out before the midterms, the better. So I would expect the conservative judges wanted to drop it sooner rather than later. But they still could have dropped it next week. I don't think anybody was really too sure on when it was. But I saw a post on Twitter bright and early this morning from about 6:45 that said, from somebody I follow, I forget who said, I have it on good authority that the Dobbs opinion is dropping today. So I kind of was like, normally I wake up and I jump right into the morning walk for the member video, which I'll have to do later tonight. But I waited specific. I'm like, I think there might be the abortion drop, maybe. So I didn't go on the walk and do the video. We decided to just come and hang out with you first thing. So, yeah, interesting. I'm glad it came. It's a good day. Chris Wolney also says, conservatives shouldn't do cartwheels just yet, per Joe. They're going to leverage this in November. The decision timing is dubious in light of the circumstances. Yeah, Chris, they 100% will, Chris. They're going to be very excited about it. All the fundraising emails are being drafted up right now. All the narratives about this, being the death of women across America, they're going to get a lot of money out of it, and they're going to get a lot of support. Because for many people, well, you saw the lady, the vagina voter, right? I mean, let's go find her, shall we? Let's go back to the vagina voter. I mean, where was she? Oh, there she is. Oh yeah, here's the conversation that these two are having about black babies, right? And they were doing this for a while, and they're both black, if you didn't notice that, right? And she is a vagina voter. So that lady is definitely going to be voting, right? And she's probably going to be voting with her vagina. So bring your sanitizer or whatever you need at the polling booth. Oh, God. All right. Justice Obsessed says, we got that one from Justice. Grouchy Old Cat Lady says that it's a New York Post article. So let's go see what this says for us here. How big cities in the U.S. are preparing after Roe versus Wade. Everybody's bracing for impact. Fox News reporting that NYPD has enhanced patrols around the city to thwart attacks from extremist and malicious actors. NYPD Intelligence Bureau have personnel also out there monitoring threats. Numerous acts of property destruction have necessitated heightened situational awareness. We're in constant contact with our Intelligence Bureau. LA Captain Police Chief Charles Norris, who leads police operations, saying we're prepared to respond if necessary. Yeah, so people sort of bracing for impact around there. Team includes 4 platoons of 100 deputies, each trained in civil disobedience. Well, I mean, it sounds like they're doing more than they did for the J6 protests. So that's good. Yeah, maybe they don't want these to get out of hand, whereas the other ones, they were okay if they kind of got a little bit squirrely. Thanks for sharing that, Grouchy Old Cat Lady. Here, also from Bonnie, says, I'm praying this leads to more decisions that put the power in the back of the hands of the states. Idaho isn't California. Let the people of each state decide. And that's a nice link from Bonnie. Near total bans in 26 states is what this graphic tells us. Time limit bans, and then likely to pass laws. Yeah, I mean, I've seen that. Like, I think Arizona has a law in the books, but are they going to enforce that, right? Like, is that actually going to get enforced? I'm not so sure about it. Like, so we'll see, right? And if you're somebody who does want, drive-through abortions, like if you do want, DoorDash to deliver you a vacuum tube or whatever, then, that's going to be, this could be a problem for you. Like this, this could be a problem. There's no doubt about it. It is consequential. That is true. All right. Tremendous says, it's kind of weird. We knew this was coming thanks to the leak, but now that it's official, instead of being anticlimactic, it's still huge news. Everyone under the sun is live streaming. I've received multiple emails and alerts. Well, Tremendous, I'm glad that you're here. And I know a lot of people are streaming right now. It's big news. It's historic. It's huge, right? If you think about it, this will probably be one of the biggest things to happen in our lifetimes, the effects of which we'll be discussing for years to come. How much more violence will this kick off? I hope none. What laws will states enact? Well, a lot. And will they try to pack the courts? Yeah. I mean, eventually. Probably not this term. They're going to run out of time and political willpower to do it. But I would think at some point, you're going to find that there are some pretty big repercussions to this. The next time there's a clean sweep and the pendulum will swing back. Okay, this next time it's going to be all Republicans, Republican House, maybe Republican Senate, and then eventually the Republican White House. But then they'll screw it up because they're a bunch of Republicans. And what are they going to do? And then it's going to go back the other way. All right. And when it goes back the other way, holy moly, when it goes back and it's all blue again, when we go back towards, it's going to be, the AOC administration, she's going to throw Rashida Tlaib and Cori Bush and Ilhan Omar on the Supreme Court. And then guess what happens, my friends? It's big trouble. So just brace yourself for impact. It's like a fleeting victories, but we'll take it while we have it. So it says here, how much more violence? What laws will the states enact? And will they pack the courts? Yeah, probably. Thanks for being here to lead the discussion. Well, look, there would be no discussion without you. Tremendous. I'm grateful that you're here. Let's see what else we've got. Three Girlies is in the house, along with Terry. Matt's mom says, how do Supreme Court decisions affect state laws? Asking for a friend because I'm not that dumb. Okay, maybe I am. Well, so it's actually not a dumb question, right? This is a very complicated question, and that's why the Supreme Court opinion took 200 pages to fight through it. It is complicated, but essentially what the Supreme Court is saying is that the Constitution no longer provides that base level protection that makes it difficult for states to regulate the abortion. So if we actually talked about some of this yesterday, talked about some of the standards of scrutiny, what Roe and Casey said is that the right to abortion is so foundational that any regulation by the government is something that is not allowed. And so, you have to think about this also in terms of some of the gray area that exists around the abortion issues. Like, for example, it's not only just about abortion, about whether somebody can go in and have the physical act of abortion performed on their body, right? Have a fetus removed from the body. But it's also about, states have really tried to regulate abortions in many ways that the pro-abortion crowd has said is overly prejudicial. It's too restrictive. And it doesn't necessarily mean that woman can't have the physical abortion. But some of these things are like a waiting period, right? If you want to go in and get an abortion, you got to wait 3 days. Or if you want to go in and get an abortion, okay, but you got to notify the husband. Okay. And they say that is, not the husband, but the other part, what are they called? The breeding person, the other breeding person that mates with the other breeding person. Oh yeah, a man. Yeah. So they got to go talk about the man who, contributes his genetic material and notify him. And they said, nope, that is prohibiting, that is infringing upon that constitutional right. Or there's also laws that say you have to look at an ultrasound, right? Look, you want to execute this fetus? All right, here, take a look at the ultrasound and listen to the heartbeat before you do it. And so some of those rules are, according to the Roe framework, according to the Casey framework, those were undue burdens on a fundamental right. Just like we talk about the right to bear arms is a fundamental right. That said that the right to an abortion was a fundamental right, and any of those burdens on it, like making them listen to an ultrasound or notifying somebody or getting parental consent or waiting a couple days or whatever, those were infringements on that fundamental right. So the states couldn't infringe upon those rights because Roe said those were foundational. But now that they are not foundational anymore, the states are free to impinge upon those rights, impinge away as much as they would like to do so. And of course, that's what's going to be happening. So it's not complicated. It's It's not simple. It's actually quite complicated. It means that states will now decide the abortion laws and regulations. And like MMS will be 15 weeks, other states like Ohio will have a heartbeat bill. And there will be states with anytime abortion like California or New York. Or abortion is not illegal. It's up to the states to decide their own laws. Heather just gave a much better explanation than I did. And she did it in like 3 sentences. So well done. Shout out to Heather. 3 girlies, Heather and the 2 other girlies in the 3 girlies household. Terry and Matt's mom also shout out. Brandy Alexander here says, is there a moral point of viability in the abortion issue? Is there a difference in the after morning pill that is preventing, how about menstrual extraction? There is therapeutic abortion. So this is some pretty, this is a pretty heavy lifting on the abortion issue. We talk about mentally unstable school shooters killing kittens and puppies, while board-certified physicians continue daily. Yeah, talking about there are a lot of couples. There are a lot of couples that pray for an adoption, and there are alternatives. There's a lot of people making a lot of money. Very interesting comment from Brandy Alexander on our locals community. Some of those words are problematic, I think, maybe for YouTube. So I'm going to skip over that comment, Brandy. But your point, your conclusion at the end, there are so many deserving couples that pray for adoption, I think, is an astute observation. And I appreciate you being here, Brandy. Molly Pop says, bruh, 2 good days in a row of justice coming out of D.C. This is a banana bread at work situation. Hell yeah, bro. Hell yeah, indeed, Molly Pop Inc. Hell yeah, banana bread at work. That sounds delicious. Yeah. You know, yeah, it's celebration. You maybe even, you know, get some sparkling water and stuff like that. Just go hog wild. In the glass, okay? Not the cans. The glass sparkling water cans, okay? Not the aluminum stuff, all right? We're sophisticated today. We got Supreme Court rulings. We're having banana bread and bottled sparkling water. So shout out to Molly Pop Inc. We also have Ed J says, God bless the Supreme Court for holding their ground and not yielding to the ongoing threats against them. Courts should not legislate. I hope babies will be saved. There will be violence tonight. Hopefully not. I hope there is not. But notice there are a lot of younger women, students standing pro-life, a lot of older women pro-choice. Yeah, maybe it's a younger generation. And that was even something that they were saying there outside of the Supreme Court, that this was going to be that this was going to be a new generation, the post-Roe generation. Pretty cool. Here, Vientikis said, yeah, Roe versus Wade is dead, and all the lying politicians are going to blame SCOTUS, even though they knew it was bad legal law, and they're going to do it while campaigning because they ran on codifying it into law. Rather than codifying it into law, they just wagged their finger at SCOTUS. And they did. I have two concerns about this decision at this particular point. One is a needle in the arm, and the other is the divisions between the states. By the way, you mentioned the YouTube censor with the sword last night. It's a good thing I bought one of these the other day. I'll just have to come play bodyguard. Haha. What is this? That looks pretty amazing. That looks pretty cool. V, don't tempt me. I might buy something like that. He says the other divisions between the states. There will be divisions between the states, and you're going to see a lot more of that, right? Especially as people are bifurcating themselves, fleeing their COVID quarantine psycho states, going to free states, right? Like, what happens when that continues? What happens when the corrupt Department of Justice sends a subpoena to officials in, let's say, Texas, and Texas says, we're not coming? Or Florida, you have to go do these things, and they say, no, we're not going to do it. What happens? Oh, gosh, we got a definitional quote here. Bonnie Speck is here, says, Robert, vagina voter was a slogan for the Hillary Clinton campaign, meaning voting for a woman, not a man. See, it is a thing. Here I was just being jokey about this whole thing, but it's a legitimate thing. In fact, here Bonnie gave us a definition. It says a term used in the 2008 presidential election for former Hillary supporters who voted for McCain-Palin tandem based on the fact that Palin is a woman. So you're voting with your vagina, somebody says. Vagina vote is unfeminist. I guess it's complicated. As I said, okay, I have limited experience with, this particular, issue because I don't vote that way. Here is another one from C. Rose. Hey, Rob, isn't it weird that the founders forgot to write down the judicial branch has the power to act as a legislature? It is weird. Why didn't they? It's an important part. Why didn't they put that in there? I mean, it's pretty key. Good thing William Douglas remembered in Griswold the penumbra of rights that were excluded. 50 years of Roe has demonstrated why the Supreme Court isn't supposed to act as a pseudo-legislature. Those decisions have caused the left a lot of trouble in drawing the distinction between law and policy. P.S. Biden must have missed the memo about part of Alito's opinion that explicitly states the Dobbs decision narrowly applies only to abortion, but we know Democrats and how they feel about memos. Ooh! That was from C. Rose, and that was a mic drop moment. See what he did there? He tied yesterday's show into today's show. Very brilliant young man there. Says, have a great day, and thanks for doing a live stream about this. Thanks for being here, C. Rose. C. Rose is in law school, and he's just doing a fantastic job, and he's helping craft one narrative from one show into the other, and I appreciate it. And I agree with him, right? He's saying that it's already going to spiral out. If they can, Joe Biden is already doing this, C. Rose. If they can take away your right to abortion, they can take away your right to travel. I mean, he just talked about that. Nobody is talking about eliminating somebody's right to travel. Now, maybe some state does. Maybe some state says, yeah, and you can't leave our state if you want to go get an abortion. And you know what the Supreme Court's going to do with that? They're going to just dump right all over it, as they should. Democrats haven't been this mad at Republicans since we freed their slaves from Molly Pop. I know. And they are mad. I mean, you saw Nancy Pelosi. They were very upset. And Heather caught my comment about the Proud Girls and the abortion keepers. I'm glad you caught that, Heather. All right, let's jump over to, we're going to come back to you, Jeff, in a minute. We're going to go over to YouTube here and see what we've got. Here on YouTube, a couple came in, and I see some members are joining up on YouTube as well, which I'm super grateful for. We're going to have a lot of fun next week. I'm glad that you're going to join us. Crash6674 said, Pelosi, oh no, that PP slush money is going to take a hit. Planned Parenthood slush money is going to take a hit. I had to think about what PP was. When I think PP, I think of the Trump PP tape and the Trump PP dossier, but that's not what you're talking about. It took me a minute. Planned Parenthood. Thanks for being here, Crash. Crash also said estimates on how big a financial hit Planned Parenthood is going to take. Which states are going to ban? Yeah, that's a great question. And certainly now, right, I would imagine the funding dries up. They have a big problem on their hands. I didn't even think about the financial impact of this on Planned Parenthood. Crash6674, her pocketbook is crocodile tear crying for them, talking about Pelosi. She was so mad. She doesn't normally look at the camera because she's like sort of spastic, you know? She's like, you know, screaming at reporters or whatever. But she looked directly into the camera and she's like, we're doomed. A lot of fun. Zulu is here, says, I agree that this is an excellent ideological statement by the court, as is its purpose. Do you think the left, just sort of capitalized like as an institution, as the monolith it is, will survive this pivotal defeat? And I think, of course, yes. So, you know, it's always hard for me to tell with Zulu. I can't tell if he's being facetious or if I can read that with sarcasm or as a legitimate question. Damn it, Zulu. So I'm going to answer it as a legitimate question because I think it's a good question, and I'm going to sort of address it accordingly. I think it's a really actually brilliant question because it's about so many people on the right have for a long time considered abortion to be sort of the sacred institution of the left. Right? You know, it's sort of a pillar. And I've made this point before. You know, I don't know ultimately how big of an institution it is for the left. I mean, I know they say it is, and I know a lot of conservatives have said it is, and a lot of talk show hosts say it is. I think, you know, Rush Limbaugh, somebody who said this was their sacred pillar. And I think that there is a lot of, you know, noise behind it, a lot of, you know, very, very vocal people certainly behind it. But I don't know, you know, like when push comes to shove, is this going to, for example, when we've been covering the J6 stuff, okay, one of the big things we've been talking about, and we actually played the clip yesterday on the show from the woman talking with Chuck Todd saying that most people don't care about this J6 stuff at all. It's not even in the top 10, right? It's like bottom list of concerns. I would have that same question about abortion. Like, where would you put abortion in on all of the other issues like gas prices and, economics and inflation and all of those things? I still think that even though you might be a lefty and abortion might be on a very important issue, is it the top of even your list of issues in that domain? Like, don't you think that the bigger issues are going to be how to solve inflation with Democratic policies, or how to solve global warming with Democratic policy? Like, they have a whole slew of other issues. So to me, the idea that like the abortion component is the last piece of the Jenga puzzle, the Jenga game, and then the whole thing crumbles over, I don't think that's really the case. I think that, it's going to be very loud. There's going to be a lot of people who are, very aggressive about it. But I mean, like, what is the overlap between abortions and the left? Like, is it a 1-to-1 ratio? Like, does every Democratic voter go get an abortion and it's a pivotal issue for them, such that if they don't have this anymore, they're going to, join another political party or stop donating to the DNC, or there's going to be some sort of a fracture in the monolith? I don't think so. I think it's just going to make them probably more emboldened, right? They'll generate more funds. They'll talk about, it'll probably marginalize the very vocal contingent more, and they'll get louder, and they'll probably get more support, and the pendulum will probably swing back the other way at some point, to be honest. So I don't think that it's sort of like the end of the left, or that the monolith comes crashing down at all. But I do think it is a great reset. I mean, I think that the Casey and Roe cases were aberrations that really should not have existed. And I'm glad that there is a reset. Now, again, if this goes through, the constitutional legal framework, still responding to Zulu here, and they actually, the left does get ideologically spurned by this, and they cobble together a big wave of voters, and they win somehow in maybe 2022 or the next time, right? Maybe Republicans win, Trump comes back in 2024, and then everybody hates him again in 2022 or 2026. And then by 2028, it's all a bunch of lefties again. And guess what happens, right? Maybe now the country says, we're going to fix that abortion thing. Maybe they pack the court. Could be possible, or they actually pass federal legislation that does sort of help codify some of the abortion protections. And, I'm never really in favor of saying that there are big, things like this are big moves one way or the other. I think that happens all the time. J6 was the end of Trump. We'll see, right? It's always the end of somebody or something, and oftentimes it never is. I think it's a setback for the Democrats, certainly. I think it's a major victory for the Constitution. If they want to, in their local states, pass whatever type of abortion laws they want to, they get free to do that, right? And people can vote as it should be. Good question, though, Zulu, and I appreciate you being here and asking that, and for modding up so nicely as you do. Here, we had another one come in from Down Under T. Says, what are the odds a night of rage turns into a summer of rage? I hope 0. I was going to say I'd like to see another summer of love, but that was pretty dang violent and pretty fiery, even though CNN said it was mostly peaceful. He says, what about a one guilty of rape or incest beyond doubt, DNA, etc., is to be a human volunteer for all of the new Pfizer trials? Okay, I don't think that's appropriate. No, I mean, what are you saying? I think you're saying we send all criminal defendants over to the Pfizer trials, which sounds like, I think, something that China does. I'm not in favor of that. On Rumble, Vientikis sent out a super chat, a Rumble rant over there is what they're called. Says, I'm surprised I was up as early as I was. I normally sleep through the day. Vientikis is nocturnal, if you didn't know that. It must have been the collective that echoed through the cosmos and woke me up. Yeah, Vientikis was sleeping soundly in a beautiful slumber, dreaming about heavenly objects. And it's like that scene out of Star Wars where everybody gets quiet, and I felt the sound of 1,000 souls screaming into oblivion. It's kind of like that outside of the Supreme Court there, wasn't it? I think it was indeed. Good to see you, V. Entikiss, Down Under T. Blue Vero became a member, which is awesome. And that means that they're going to be able to show up and come to our member mastermind, which is coming up next week on Thursday. Jim Sands is going to be there also. Very excited about that. Jim Sands became a member. And they were joined earlier by Jenny B. He's been a member for 3 months. Chris Wolney with a super chat says, a conservative decision, but empowers the liberals. Yeah, it was a conservative decision. And I think it does empower the liberals. It's really going to motivate them big time. And they're going to be ready to rock and roll at some point. Jim Sands became a member. Linda Hubbard with the super chat, but no question. Thank you very much, Linda Hubbard. Down Under T says the reason Dems are for abortion is because Republicans are not. There could be some truth to that, right? I think it's sort of two sides. You see that, right? There's a book called Tribal Leadership, and there's that talks about tribalism and how to sort of, whip people up into tribes and build a tribe. And yeah, people join their tribes. It's like people will defend their political heroes or their Hollywood heroes or, whatever, until the end of the world because they've joined a tribe. Zulu is here, says, do you think this is a greater victory for Republicans than when they successfully wage war on southern states to impose the federal will? Are you talking about the Civil War, Zulu? I think you're talking about the Civil War. So see, now I think this is the, it's hard to tell with Zulu. So no, I don't think this is a bigger victory than the Civil War, I think is what you're getting at. I'm not going to make the same claims as Joe Biden. I'm not going to say that Roe versus Wade is the biggest victory since the Revolutionary War or the Civil War. But part of Zulu's snark here is because what Zulu's trying to do is catch me in a little bit of a contradiction, right? Because here, there is, and this is a very good point. Zulu brings up a very good point, sort of alternative history when you talk about the Civil War. Many people think about Abraham Lincoln as like this hero. This guy's like, wow, this selfless, totally amazing leader who broke this country together, a fallen country, saved it and put it back together and ended slavery and all this stuff. And there's another interpretation of old Abraham Lincoln if you wanted to go that route. You could say he's a guy who, got rid of habeas corpus. He's a guy who imposed a very, very strong, overly burdensome federal government on the will of the southern states. And maybe the southern states, maybe they're sort of less concerned about slavery and they're more concerned about, duties and taxes and about representation and about being under the thumb of a tyrannical, centralized government up in the north, right? There's a different narrative. And so what Zulu, I think, is trying to do is to sort of to get me. I don't really know what Zulu's trying to do. Zulu's a sneaky, but it's a good question, right? And you can really unpack a lot of those questions. But no, I don't think that Roe versus Wade is more consequential than the Civil War. No, I don't. I'm not Joe Biden. I'm not Kamala Harris, who say that the J6 event was worse than either of those two things. Good question, though, Zulu. Catherine Smith is next, says Trudeau's statement, quote, what if one of those convoy frozen bank accounts prevented a woman from getting one? He didn't say that. Did he really say that? Did he really say that? I can't believe that he would say something like that. But maybe he did. Justin Trudeau's out of his mind. Catherine Smith, Trudeau's statement, what if one of those convoy frozen bank accounts prevented a woman? Did he comment on the abortion thing? SCOTUS. Let me look this up while we have this here. He did. All right, here he is. CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Company, Corporation, whatever. Thank you for flagging this for us, Catherine. Trudeau calls the U.S. court decision overturning Roe versus Wade horrific. Let's see what this says. He says, no government, politician, or man should force a woman to carry a pregnancy. He writes, Prime Minister Trudeau weighed in on Friday on the U.S. decision, said he called it a horrific development that threatens the right of a woman to choose what she wants to do. My heart goes out to millions of American women who are now set to lose their legal right to abortion. I can't imagine the anger and the fear that you're feeling right now. No government or politician should force a woman to carry out a pregnancy, reiterating that under his liberal leadership, we will always stand up for your right to choose. So I get it now. Yeah, now I get it. So Catherine's comment now makes sense. Well, what if one of those frozen bank convoy accounts that you stole, what if that prevented a woman from getting an abortion? Now it makes sense. Okay, so now I get it. Thank you, Catherine Smith. So she's saying, Justin Trudeau comes out and he whines and moans about, poor women won't be able to go and get what they need because of those tyrants in America. And Catherine Smith says, well, pretty similar situation there, because Trudeau, through his defense of Canada, whatever powers that he granted himself temporarily, he went and seized people's bank accounts and just took their money. And Catherine's saying, what if they needed that money for an abortion, Trudeau? You robbed them of their rights. It's a good point. Thank you for that very generous super chat there, Catherine, as well. Down Under says, it was a joke. I'm not a monster like Fauci. That's true. So Down Under T, thank you for clarifying that, Down Under T. He's like, Rob, I was just kidding. Okay. I didn't really want to send criminal defendants to go get the vaccine, trial program or whatever the next, whatever's coming. Thanks for clarifying that, Down Under T. I appreciate it. All right, let's go back over to locals before we wrap it up for the day. We'll do a quick refresh and see what we have here. I saw a couple others come in. And then we'll close up shop, my friends. Here, Tessa Michelle says, abortion. It's a strategy of oppressors, removing the idea that human life has value and replacing it with the idea that living beings materially identical to us, who develop from human DNA just like us, do not deserve to live. So that we could come to accept the idea that we don't deserve to live either. Oh my gosh. That's a heavy comment. And Tessa, I agree with you on this. I think that life is extremely precious, and, I don't like it when it sort of seems like it's disposable. And I've been, so I catch some grief on this topic, but on the death penalty, the other direction, right? I don't like to see people put to death either by the death penalty, right? I think that that's going to be looked at as a pretty gruesome thing that we do, let's say 100 years from now, just like abortion is. And I think that we'll notice that, a lot of people have a lot of stuff that's wrong with them twisted in their brains that might cause them to want to go do certain things that impact other lives. And I think once we start to understand that a little bit more, and we have a little bit more human empathy in our society, that we'll look at these things as hopefully problems that are just not necessary anymore. We evolve past the need for abortions. We evolve past the need for the death penalty because we have other solutions, or people just don't commit them as much or don't need them as much because we've evolved past that. Great question. Heavy stuff. Monster One says, instead of people complaining about riots and burning churches, how about people go out and protect them? The reason why the left gets away with this crap is because the right lets them. The left knows that they will meet little, if any, resistance. Monster One's gearing up. Be careful out there, Monster One. But, look, you have the right. You have a great right now to protect yourself because the Supreme Court came out and said so yesterday. Monster One, we have Three Girlie says, Pelosi is mad because she's being denied a communion for a right that isn't constitutional. Yeah, look, Pelosi's in deep trouble too. Think about that. A double whammy on these things. First of all, you've got a big distinction now. Not only can you not get an abortion, but you might not even be going to heaven, Nancy. So you're in big trouble. I hope it was worth it. Good to see you, Three Girlies. Monster One says, there was a Republican congressman on Tim Pool last. He said that if they win, Kevin McCarthy will be Speaker of the House. Pretty much confirmed the Republicans will have no will to actually govern or do anything the voters want. No BLM investigation, no investigation into the attack on the White House. They are truly useless. I agree with you, Monster One. What are the Republicans doing? What have they done at all? They don't even have a good spokesperson. They're not responding in any way, shape, or form to the J6 committee hearing. I mean, Trump has this sort of a war room thing, but it's just like ridiculous. Jeremy says, Rob, in the spirit of an old friend of ours in common, nothing said matters until you share your analysis and thoughts on it. Well, that's pretty interesting, Jeremy. Nothing said matters until you share your analysis and thoughts on it. Well, thank you, Jeremy. Jeremy, you've been around for the longest time, brother, and I appreciate you being here. I'm glad that you're here. We had another one come in from Jeff Rook. Says, Putin invaded Ukraine, so vote for us. J6 happened, so vote for us. There was a school shooting, so vote for us. Roe was overturned, so vote for us. My most trusted method for seeing someone's true intentions is when they ascribe the same solution to every problem. Gun crime is a problem, so give us more power. Terrorism is a problem, so give us more power. Racism is a problem, so give us more power. Inequality is a problem, so give us more power. Climate change is a problem, so give us more power. Russia is a problem, so give us more power. Etc., and blah, 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 and so on. It's times like this my mood goes from, well, have you looked at this from a different perspective to, all right, yeah, you're free to just go F yourself. Yeah, and I can understand that. You know, there's dialogue is only so useful, and then it just becomes, I think, useless. It is no longer productive, and I think society is going that way, right? Whether we like it or not. The idea that we had an obligation to converse with people and accept their opinions and viewpoints and all of that. Like, that was a nice idea for a long time. I like it. I prefer that way. I like to talk to people and explore ideas without being called names and labeled certain things like insurrectionist and terrorist and domestic violent extreme and all that stuff. Right? I would prefer to be able to talk about things. But that entire narrative has changed. You're not really allowed to do that much anymore. You get censored, you get strikes on YouTube, you get called you get prosecuted for crimes. I mean, the whole thing's ridiculous. So I agree that it is a continual problem. I agree that the solutions they want are always the same, more and more power. But as I think society evolves, more people are going to come to this conclusion, just like you have. It's just don't engage, just don't communicate, don't do business, create parallel systems, parallel companies, parallel communities, and disengage. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that. Facts Matter says, what a hypocrite, this man. Yeah, the news coming out of the States is horrific. I can't imagine the fear and anger you're feeling right now. Yeah, from Justin Trudeau. Facts Matter. Good to see you here, Facts Matter. John Delar says, are people going to give Donald Trump the credit he deserves for this? Will it help him with Republican support? Should. I mean, it should. He put 3 judges on there, and they did this, right? Mr. MVP says Roe is dead, yet abortion is returned back to the states and is a state issue, not federal. That's right. That's why I said Roe is dead, Mr. MVP. I did not say abortion is dead, right? I said Roe is dead. A lot of people are out there. Abortion's dead. No, it is not. But Roe is dead, and that's the good thing here. And, abortion is going to go back to an issue that is determined by the people of the states. That's a good thing. Monster One says, I don't think Planned Parenthood will take a hit. They'll just adapt. They're going to start busing people around to other states. It'll probably actually increase their funding. I'm sure the baby sacrificers will pony up plenty of money for transportation. Get on a bus at Planned Parenthood in a red state. Get your abortion in a blue state. Look, you think I was only sort of joking about DoorDash abortions, but we'll see. John Delar said this decade in the 1970s all over again. Abortion rights, gas problems, impeachment, protest. Joe Biden is Jimmy Carter 2.0. Ronald Reagan ended up saving us. Hopefully a Republican president will save us again in 2 years. Good comment from John Delar. I wasn't around during the Jimmy Carter eras. I was born sort of smack dab in the middle of the Reagan era. And don't remember any of it because I was too young. But I do remember Jimmy Carter era being written about pretty horrifically, and I don't regret not being there. Here, Heather says, I guess taxpayer-funded abortions are dead in the water, too. Well, I mean, if states want to make changes, they're all going to be free to do that. There's not much they're going to be able to do about it. C. Rose shared the link to Justin Trudeau's status, so he posted this on Twitter, and I think Facts Matter posted the link to this, the screenshot. So he goes on. Yep, there it is. Over on Twitter. All right. And so I think that covers us, my friends, on locals. A couple more came in from YouTube. Very generous today, everybody. Thank you so much. Here, Richard Jack says, I find it curious that the left fight to murder their babies, but say nothing about M. Sanger's real motivation to push for abortion. And Margaret Sanger, I think she's the founder of Planned Parenthood, right? She's somebody who I think talked about eliminating the sort of the dregs of society, the people who are bad genes, as sort of the low value people. She wanted them gone. And, Well, that I'm not going to go there. All right. Many of you know who Joey is. Joey is my brother. He's been on the show. People like Margaret Sanger maybe would have said that Joey doesn't really deserve to, exist. Pretty gross. Here is Devanend Condor says, during another year, ours would lose on this issue. This time around, it will reduce their margin of victory. For the middle, it is another day where they have to choose the devil or the deep sea. Good comment from Devanend. And I think that's right? If the Republicans were going to blow out the left on this case, in this election, it'll probably close that margin, right? So maybe they'll still win massively. And this might be the best reason or the best timing for the Supreme Court of all, right? If that happens, if it doesn't result in a blue wave and it just sort of decreases the margin of victory, but there's still a victory, who cares? You drop it, there's going to be a big outrage. But by the time November comes around, we still got 5 months away, right? Or 4 months now. And it's going to be, I'm going to guess it's going to be probably overwhelmed by another issue, because the pace of the issues that come up now are so fast, it's hard to even keep track of them. Right? All it takes is a Putin doing something, or China doing something, or Joe Biden falling off a tricycle or whatever, and maybe people forget about it, or it becomes less of a pressing issue in the face of inflation and gas prices and a non-functional economy, or rolling blackouts, which they're speculating is going to hit basically everybody now. We'll see. Great question though. Also, JTZKB says, the right of what to choose? I don't know what a woman is. I've never heard that word before. Can Mr. Trudeau provide a definition? It's complicated. So he's not going to be able to get one from our newest Supreme Court judge, who is not a biologist, and I'm not a biologist. So it's difficult for me to really flesh this out, but it might be in the 200 pages of the Supreme Court opinion. So maybe check there if you want to dig into that. And Phyllis Chandler says, thank you, President Trump, for your contribution to the SCOTUS. A great show today from Phyllis Chandler. Thank you, Phyllis. And thank you for your support and for being here. I'm really grateful for all of the super chats that came in. It looks like we got some great new members, which I'm also extremely excited about, because we've got our member mastermind coming up next Thursday, 12:30 p.m., 3:30 Eastern. And it's going to go in the format of Think and Grow Rich, which is chapter 10 out of that book. Should be able to find it free on YouTube. The audiobook is available and free. But that's it for me, my friends. We covered a lot of ground today. Covered the entire Roe versus Wade death gone. Not good law anymore. And the reaction, of course, was a lot of fun. Joe Biden's very upset about it. Justin Trudeau is very upset about it. We also know that Nancy Pelosi is just like fuming mad. And there's going to be a lot more reaction. And so we'll continue to follow this as it develops. But for today, we are going to wrap it up and leave it there. I want to invite you to join one of our communities over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com, where we are chatting away. Vientikis, JC the Music Man, and many others, Radices here. And we sort of post those comments and share stories throughout the day. But also, another great place to join is on YouTube. I'm posting exclusive member-only videos on both of these platforms. And we also have our member Mindmap, member mastermind coming up very soon next week. I always encourage you to think about our law firm when you're talking with anybody that you know or love who might be charged with a crime in the state of Arizona. This is what we do. We have an amazing team of people every day in court fighting for people's rights. R&R Law Group, free case evaluations, 480-729-6280. Our mission is to help good people find safety, clarity, and hope. Shout outs to our mods, of course, for holding the fort down. Just Cause is in the house. I saw Zulu in here, Zulu and others, including K-Bean. And lastly, shout out to our Spotlight supporters. And we have a new Spotlight supporter who's going to be coming in, and we're going to be linking over to him. And I believe it's at Q Simple. I'm going to add that one up here, the logo, the Q Simple logo. And that's going to be fun. So if you want some real estate here, a little bit of extra real estate on the screen, you can link to the website, link to a social media profile, whatever. It's just, if you support the show at a high tier, I want to share this space with you, the community, rather than talking about selling, whatever, some sort of sponsored product. Of course, my law firm is the sponsored product here, but also, if you have anything that we can sort of share usefully here, Spotlight supporter on YouTube or the equivalent level of support on Locals, and I can add you to the list. But that, my friends, is it for us for the day. I want to thank you for being a part of the program and for joining us all week long. We've covered a lot of ground this week. We're going to be back to do it all again on Monday. Won't be alive tomorrow since it's the weekend, but I still expect to do some members-only videos and probably some shorts and some pre-releases. So make sure you're subscribed to this channel if you're not already somebody who's subscribed. And that way, you'll be notified about what is cooking here. Otherwise, everybody, have a tremendous rest of your Friday. I hope you get some time with your friends and family, get some fresh air this weekend, unplug from politics, unplug from work, recharge those batteries, because we got to be back here to do it all again on Monday. And I look forward to seeing you there. Have a tremendous weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.